Hi again then guys, and welcome to another Special Projects custom build for Gran Turismo 6, and this particular custom is a car which I actually thought up shortly before setting up to do today's special project. I was looking in the Mercedes dealership and I thought to myself, Mercedes likes making homages to older models, as many manufacturers do, but there's one vehicle in particular which, despite being very significant in their motorsport history, has not really been paid homage to in any of their modern four-door vehicles, any of their modern sedans. And that icon is the 190e, in particular the Evo-II, with the large rear wing and the most power. It's one of the most iconic Mercedes performance cars ever made. It's extremely expensive, even in used form to this day, and it's one of the most iconic homologation cars in that kind of Group B and road-going DTM car era. So, what if Mercedes made a modern homage to the 190 Evo? Obviously not with a small capacity Cosworth engine, but something that had the spirit of a car like that in a modern Mercedes package. So what would be the modern equivalent? Well, it's the C-Class. The C-Class, of course, was in the DTM, so what better car to pay homage to it than that? So we've taken the C63 AMG, and then, of course, because this isn't a real car, we've put my personal interpretation, my own spin, on what an homage vehicle like this could possibly be like. I've gone for visuals which are reminiscent of the original 190e, but again with its own more modern feel. Now we will run through the visuals first, then the mechanical side of things, and finally we'll take it out to the Nuremberg Ring to see what kind of driving performance the car gives you. Now, as far as the visuals on this particular car, I have opted to fit it with a body kit. You've got the standard kit, of course, then you've got the carbon chin splitter kit, and then you've got what I've gone for, which is the larger body kit with larger side skirts and a larger chin splitter in the same colour as the body of the car. And the reason why I went for that one is twofold. One, because it's chunkier and bigger, like the 190e, which has a very pronounced body kit, and also because it is body coloured, and that seemed, at least to me, more appropriate to the spirit of the 190e, which again has that body coloured body kit. Now, as far as the flat floor, I've opted not to fit it because, as cool as it would be, it just doesn't suit the look of the car. It looks way too over the top. That would never be on a production vehicle. As far as the rear wing, I considered using one of the optional rear wings, but at the end of the day, they're a bit too big. The actual 190 Evo does have a large wing, but it's a totally different style. It really suits the shape of the car, and also you have to bear in mind that it's from a different era, and that wouldn't necessarily suit a modern car. So I've actually opted to leave the wing stock, so just the small lip wing, which personally I think looks pretty clean in combination with the body kit. Now, as far as the rims on this car, I wanted again, if possible, to pay homage to the original car's wheels. And the wheels that I found to do that with are just like the original 6-spoke wheels, and the particular model of rim that I went for are these Rays 57Ds. 6-spoke, just like the 190e, not quite as chunky and as thick as the 190e's rims, but still pretty close as far as the visuals. And as far as the additional meters, I've opted not to fit any, but obviously that's down to personal preference. If you want to fit them, then by all means do so, of course. Now, as far as the colour, again, I wanted to not necessarily straight up copy the original, although with the body I have gone for the same colour, but obviously with the rims they're not necessarily going to be the same. Now, for the body colour, as you can see, we've gone for a solid colour, and it does come from the 190e. It's the only colour that comes with the car, Blau-Schwarz, or blue-black. That's the same colour as the original, seemed like the most appropriate colour to go for. And as far as the rims, I've gone for silver, which is obviously silver in comparison to the more kind of off-white that the rims come in as standard. And as you can see, I've gone for brilliant silver, which again is a German colour. It's a German silver. I believe it also comes from Mercedes, if I remember correctly. But overall, that's what I've done for the visuals to pay my personal homage to the 190 Evo-II. What though about the mechanical side of things? Well, on a car like this, which is completely fictional, totally out of my own mind, and based on what could have happened rather than what did happen, obviously there are plenty and plenty of variables to work with. If you want to change something up, then by all means do so. Now I've opted to round it off PP wise as well to 505. Not necessarily the most useful number, but still it's better than sitting at say 506 or 503. Now I've gone for sports soft tyres, so a slight upgrade. You don't necessarily have to change them, sports hards are just fine. I've left the brakes stock of course because it is a production car. For the suspension, I've lowered the ride height to 135 in particular on the front, 150 on the rear. That actually acts to basically level out the ride height on this car. Again, the 190e is a little bit lower on the front, so that's kind of appropriate again. As far as springs, we've just slightly increased those to 550 and 5. Dampers and anti-roll I've left on 3 because that is higher than stock. Neutral, camber and tow, which you really don't need any on this car, but of course if you want to have some, that's down to you. I've opted to leave the gearbox stock because you get smoother gear changes with the stock transmission, and also because it sounds better. With the race gearbox you do have that kind of standout whine under certain, especially replay conditions, that you don't have with a stock box, because the straight cut gears of a race transmission make more noise. So if you want to have a race gearbox, go ahead obviously, but I've opted not to. As far as the diff, again, you could change these up if you want to, depending on if you want the car to be more fun or more competitive in terms of lap times, racing, that kind of thing. I've gone for the lowest initial torque, as you can see, halfway on acceleration and braking. As far as power, we do have an oil change, but then I've just reduced the power down to basically stock again anyway, 450 horsepower. And as far as the weight, that's the main difference that I wanted to make to the car, to make it lighter than it originally was. And although I wanted it to be a fair bit lighter, I didn't want it to be unrealistically so. I imagine this car as having kind of a stripped out interior, but not in a conventional gutted out race car kind of way, but more in the style of stuff like old school cloth seats, like the 190 Evo had, that kind of thing, where it's still not a completely no holds barred track car, but definitely a lot lighter than it originally was. So I've gone for the stage 1 weight reduction, also window weight. That's not essential, but I wanted to do it. And then I've added, as you can see, 121 kilos of ballast, which actually makes it 80 kilos lighter than the car starts off at, which I personally think is realistic, but at the same time, a pretty good drop to have. And personally, you don't need to do this, but I've opted to put that 45% towards the back, which brings you to a 50-50 split, but basically right on the cusp of being a 51-49 split. So still a little bit more tail happy, but at the same time, it's a good split ratio to have. So that's what I've done for the mechanicals, and as I said, there is a ton of room for personal variation, and feel free to change anything you want. Of course, I would encourage that. So, to see how it all comes together on a track, let's take a visit to the Nürburgring Ring. Overall, as far as the performance of the car around a track in particular, I wanted it to be a very playful vehicle with handling that is better than the standard C63, fairly obviously, but at the same time I wanted it to kind of combine some of the characteristics in terms of handling that the 190e had, combined with the modern style of the AMGs, such as the C63, whereas they are very tail happy now, they've got higher torque than they used to have, but at the same time with that definitely more track focused but still playful side of the 190 Evo-II. Overall, I'm very happy with how the handling turned out. You can definitely get the tail out, but at the same time it does feel a lot lighter on its feet, and it's definitely quicker around the track as well. So overall, if you do decide to use this custom build, or of course some variation of it, I hope you have a lot of fun with it first and foremost, and potentially use it in racing or seasonals, time trials, all that kind of thing, if you so desire. But that's it overall for this particular build. Of course, you could check out the playlist at the end of this video for a lot more, almost 200 more in fact. And that's it for this build. So I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.